Welcome. I am delighted to be joined by Andrew Horvath, Global Chair of Star Scientific. Andrew's role is overseeing the business strategy and development behind the company's breakthrough technology that we will explore in this interview. Andrew, thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here.
Well, Andrew, tell us a bit more about the company. You often get confused as a startup, but that's not correct, is it?
No, we're approaching our 25th anniversary. So Star was developed a long time ago in the pursuit of muon-catalyzed fusion. So we are really experts at hydrogen at the subatomic level. And during the course of that 3.5 years ago now, this is when we discovered our HERO catalyst as part of that research. That muon fusion research continues today, but HERO is a separate subclass to that is non-nuclear.
Well, then give the audience an insight into HERO, what it is and how it works.
Sure. So HERO is a catalyst. So as most of the audience probably know, most catalysts are used in industry for chemical manufacture, steel manufacture, gold manufacture. It's used all over the place. But the big thing with catalysts is they get used in the reaction, so they become part of the reaction. HERO is what's known as a true catalyst. So it doesn't form part of the reaction, it forms a home for the reaction to take place in. So HERO's primary function is to alter hydrogen and oxygen when it comes in contact with it. Now, when it does that, as with all nature, physics tends towards stability. So its most stable path out of being unstable is to make water. The moment you make water, you end up with a lot of energy left over. So kilo for kilo, it's 5 times the value of coal left over. Now that is in the form of excitation energy, which is just heat. It's just vibrational energy. The beauty of HERO is because it's non-combusting, it doesn't rely on radiated heat. All that energy is there in the form of excitation energy right there where you need it, and we can move plus 90% of that energy directly into what you want to heat, be that steam, be that heating oils, be that for cooking, be that for hot plates, whatever other application you require. If you need heat, it'll do it.
So you claim then HERO is a catalyst for the demand side driver of hydrogen. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, at the moment, everybody is talking about the production of hydrogen. And then you have, the multiple colours, black, green, blue, turquoise now with the nuclear industry. We've always argued that that's well and good, but if no one's able to use the stuff, it's pretty useless. Mm-hmm. So this is the way you use it. So it's the most efficient way to grab hold of that energy that's stored in hydrogen, because everyone has to remember hydrogen is not a fuel, it's an energy carrier, it's a chemical battery. So you grab that energy and how do you use it the best possible way? So you have power. So that's the demand side of power. So you make steam, you keep all those pretty steam turbines ticking over because it's not the power station that's at fault, it's the fuel. They make more money because they don't need to deal with coal and pollution. Plus they get parasitic energy back. So per gigawatt, about 100 megawatts of parasitic energy comes back into their system that they can do whatever they want with. You've then got industry, and people have to remember that 67% of the carbon problem going into the air is heat in industry. It's not power. Heat in industry cannot be electrified. It's just a nonsensical proposition. It is way too difficult to do. But with HERO, it's a plug and play solution. So if you've got a boiler up front heating oil or steam or other gases that you want to circulate, well, you move that boiler aside and you put the HERO heat exchanger there, connect your pipes to it, and you keep doing what you did the day before, but now you're a zero emission business.
And how does this fit in with the business model for HERO?
Well, the business model for HERO that we've constructed is kind of based on the way Rolls-Royce changed their jet engine model years ago. Rolls-Royce used to sell jet engines and then they stopped and they went, you know what, we're going to sell thrust. And all the jet engines belong to us. Now, they did this for a couple of reasons. It's a smarter business model for a start. But it's about gaining the information from their jet engine. So every jet engine that they've got is a telemetry system feeding information back to their central systems. So they call them flying experiments. So every little change, everything they monitor, and they know way before 3 to 6 months out, if a jet engine's starting to fail or there's a problem in a jet engine, they'll just turn up and say, we're going to change the engine. It's our engine, don't worry about it. We'll change it. Hero's going to do the same thing. Hero will end up selling heat as a service. So we're not selling the Hero units, we sell heat as a service. There are units, as they need to be upgraded or as we see issues, we will be there long before the customer know there's even an issue developing.
That's a really interesting approach. And looking at your expansion, I see you have signed an MOU with the Philippines. Why was that a market that you were focused on, not the usual pathway of, say, a Germany or a Japan?
I'll tell you why. I've long held a belief that it's not the established markets that will drive the hydrogen economy. It's going to be the fossil fuel have-nots. So if you look at the Philippines, they're an importer of fuel, right? And they have a net trade deficit. So there's two beautiful situations there that we could come in and say to them, listen, we can make you independent for energy because they've got a stack of offshore wind energy that they can use for electrons. We can give you the type of electrolyzers you need to make that and the storage solutions, but we have the end use. Now, the end use then allows you to place your new cities, which they want to develop 3 of, new cities where you want them, not linked to the current power systems, but where you want them as energy islands, if you will. The reason they want to do this is they have 111 million people, 56% of which are under the age of 25. So they have a very young, well-educated, they've got a great education system, well-educated people who all want to go to Manila to get a job, and they can't do that. So they want to develop a situation where they become the next manufacturing hub. But when they surveyed their youth said 3 things have to happen. Has to be zero emission, has to be slave-free, and it has to be recyclable. And they went, that's actually a good combination, because if we can achieve that in our islands, then we can draw manufacturers from around the world because they're all claiming they want to be net zero, slave-free and recyclable. So we can give them the type of manufacturing environment they want. We can give our young people highly paid, good career paths that will allow them to take their skill sets around the world, and we'll be able to start exporting and we will have our own energy. So that's why they ended up doing it. They had a very good vision. We kind of grabbed that and said, we can sharpen that vision for you. How about it? So, I mean, it's gotten to the point now where we're actually part of their interdepartmental committees, and they're just working with us, and they're saying, we love what you say, let's write all that down. We want to do it this way. We go, that's fine. And we're working with them step by step by step to develop the hydrogen plan now to implement that strategy over the next 10 years.
That's a really interesting approach. I wanted to tie in on that and ask about the supply issues you have. Well, there are with green hydrogen, the cost, availability, etc. How is Star Scientific approaching these issues, particularly with those MOUs that you've signed in countries like the Philippines?
Sure. So what we've looked for is we're investing in sort of deep offshore floating wind in companies that are coming out with some very clever solutions. So a while ago, I created a company as a subsidiary of Star in Zurich called Planet Power Finance. Now, Planet Power Finance is not your usual VC. It is a hybrid that grabs new inventors and young inventors who can't ever get government funding. Because government funding, as we all know, go to the big boys who have accountants and government relations people and, mass people who can write these beautiful documents for them. Your average young inventor can't do that, and they never get the money. So I said to that team, I want you to go out and find these people, and they have been step by step by step finding brilliant things that small companies can't develop, but we can. We've found things in the electrolyzer world. We've found things in the wind world. There's 2 other energy projects I can't mention at the moment, but they're just radical how they produce energy, but they do produce mass amounts of energy. So looking at that problem, we've looked at, okay, say in the case of the Philippines or the case of Africa, who have been talking to us extensively, many countries in Africa now, is that they've got massive, deep offshore wind, floating wind opportunities. So the Philippines is over 100 gigawatt off their western shores. It's massive. So they've got this great ability, but they've also got a series of islands there that are unoccupied. And they've said to us, could we make hydrogen on those islands linked to those green electrons and then store them, move it to where we need to? And we went, of course you can. It makes more sense to move the hydrogen than to move the electrons. It's 1/6 the cost. So working through with that, that's how we've looked at it. Part of the technology we're looking at is an ultra efficient electrolyzer that no one in Siemens or any of the other guys have even come near of thinking of. This thing is so cheap to make and so smart, it's amazing. And we're working with that inventor very, very closely. Obviously, it's their invention and we are kind of the partners who are going to use it and probably make them very wealthy in the process. But that's what Planet Power Finance is about. It's about getting in there and helping small groups that can help STAR develop its projects. At the same time, we help them float. We help them go out there, and get their money. We help them develop their projects for other industries in the world as well. So that's how we've tackled those issues.
Well, so you're helping where you see in areas government aren't supporting with the funding. As a wider point, what's the most important thing, in your opinion, governments can do to support the hydrogen economy?
Oh, easily. That's an easy one. Regulation. Regulation is all over the place. If you look across America, every state, and in some states, they've got energy zones in the states that are all elected, and they all have different opinions. You will go across the US, and in Australia, it's the same thing. You will go from state to state, and you will have different valve sizes. You'll have different piping types. You'll have, now Australia is getting its act together because all the premiers have finally agreed, yep, hydrogen's it. And the federal government's joined them. And in the budget that was put down yesterday, on top of the announcements that were made at our plant by the Prime Minister, there's another 250 million being thrown into hydrogen on top of that. So they're up well over the billion now in investing in hydrogen. But the biggest thing I told the Prime Minister on the day he visited us, could we have some consistent regulation? Because without consistent regulation, you can't get consistent training of the workforce to use hydrogen. And if you can't get a guy to screw 2 bits of pipe together for hydrogen, you're a long way behind. So it's consistent regulation globally. That's the biggest thing governments have to do.
That's a really interesting point and a debate throughout this event. So, to confirm, it's definitely obviously the regulation, not the subsidies. It's the regulation first. That's the key priority.
It absolutely is. And I'll tell you one of the biggest reasons. When you get international funders coming in to look at major projects, one of the problems they have here and in other countries I've found out is that problem. The first thing they need to go through is all the regulations that will apply to what is being to be done, large solar farm or whatever. And wherever you are, it's just a world of different regulations. And those funders have to pour through those and go, which is going to be the easiest or the most likely to pass those set of criteria. If they aren't relatively uniform, we're never going to get anywhere. So, definitely in Australia, that's become a big thing now. We've actually been placed on our regulations panel now to look at that. So our lead technologist is about to give a very big lecture to that panel to say, listen, this is how HERO works. Because I'll give you a simple example. One of the interesting things they said was, well, yeah, we have regulation. We have things for burning, things that burn gases. And we go, we don't burn. We don't burn anything. And they went, oh. So straight away, we fell outside any known regulation in this country. So that's where it needs to be. If you don't have that, you will not get the core investment to get this revolution started.
Super interesting. Final comments then, Andrew, for our audience before we wrap up.
Final comments is don't think small. The mistake that a lot of people are making is that hydrogen's 2040, 2050, 2060. That's a myth being put out there by a lot of the fossil guys who want you to think, yes, we're all behind hydrogen. Yes, we're going to get involved with hydrogen. But they genuinely are trying to hold us back. And why wouldn't they? It's their stranded assets they're trying to prevent. I see the business strategy, but if we think big and we think bold, we're going to get there. And it's only if you really get out there and think big, and I'm talking gigatons of the stuff moving around, we will recreate the way the world works. And you're going to bring whole continents like Africa into the commercial markets, which is just jobs for all of us, you know, to manufacture stuff for a place like Africa and jobs for them as well. So, you know, if we want to tackle all the issues, that's the key point. The second point I'd like to make is people have to stop focusing on climate change as the only reason. It's not. Technology has its own momentum, and this is a move on a technology. No one still drives a 1960s car or makes their appointments with a dial-up telephone, you know, a rotary telephone. We've moved on, and we've moved on for a reason, because there's better technology. Hydrogen is simply better technology, as well as curing other problems. That's the reason we should push it.
Andrew, thank you so much for your time today. I really look forward to how this all progresses with Star Scientific and obviously the wider hydrogen economy.
Yep, so do we. So do we.
Thank you.